Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. Today I'm going to recap last night's Monday Night Football game between the Rams and the Bears. I'm going to preview and pick Game 6 of the World Series. I'm going to discuss Odell Beckham Jr. tearing his ACL and what it means for the Browns, NFL Power Rankings, and my best bet of the day. All right, we'll start with football. Monday Night Football. The Rams absolutely dominate the Bears 24-10. What a great win for the Los Angeles Rams, who improved to 5-2, and the Bears dropped to 5-2. Jared Goff, 23 of 33, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nick Foles was not good. 28 of 40, 261 yards, and 2 interceptions. Tyler Higbee did not play in this game for the Rams. Gerald Everett caught a touchdown pass from Jared Goff in the third quarter. The turnovers really haunt the Bears in this game. They went for it on fourth down a couple times and didn't get it. And those are some what-ifs, but give credit to the Rams. Aaron Donald was dominant. It was a good bounce-back win after a dismal loss against the 49ers on Sunday Night Football from last week. So, Rams next week go to Miami to take on Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins. The Bears next week are hosting the New Orleans Saints. Now I'm going to preview tonight's World Series game number 6 between the Rays and Dodgers. The Dodgers are favored in this game, minus 138. Rays are plus 120, over under 8.5. Minus 112 is the over, minus 108 is the under. Rays run line plus 1.5, minus 168. Dodgers run line plus 142, minus 1.5. I'm going to take the Rays again, the force of Game 7. Blake Snell's on the hill. He pitched very well last time out in game number 2. Struck out 8 or 9 batters. His strikeout total is 5.5 again. I think he goes over that again. So give me the Rays, the force of Game 7, plus 120. And by the way, the Rays on FanDuel to win the series is plus 430. Sugar House is plus 450. I would consider getting in on that too, but I don't know if I would do that or do the rollover and bet on money line tonight and then money line tomorrow. So I think plus 450 is very, very juicy and valuable if you're considering betting the Rays for the next 2 games. Betting them plus 450 is really good. And Tony Gonsolin gets the start for the Dodgers today. And then tomorrow, if there's a Game 7, it's probably going to be Charlie Morton against Walker Buehler, which was the matchup in game number 3. And for tonight, I think Gonsolin's going to be good for 2. And then you mix and match with your bullpen. Dylan Floro, Bruce Graterol, Julio Urias, Blake Trinan, Kenley Jansen, and some other guys too. Dustin May, I think you'll see for an inning or 2 in this game as well. So it's going to be fun to see how tonight's game ultimately plays out. Now I want to discuss a major injury in the NFL. Odell Beckham Jr. tore his ACL in that game against the Bengals on Sunday after a Baker Mayfield interception. He was trying to make a tackle, and that's how the torn ACL happened. The Browns, to their credit, came back to beat the Bengals without him. Donovan Peoples-Jones was making catches, and so was that other guy, Higgins, that some people like. It is a big loss for the Browns. I'm interested to see against a good defense what this offense looks like. I mean, we've seen it against 2 good defenses, and it was terrible against the Steelers and the Ravens. And they're 12-1 to win the AFC North, which I think is juicy right now. And the Steelers are plus 120, and the Ravens are obviously favored. But big loss for the Browns. Now they're going to have to rely heavily on Jarvis Landry, the run game Maybe there's going to be a Ewing theory here with Odell. We saw some Ewing theory potential with the Panthers with McCaffrey, but they've missed him the last couple weeks. Chandler Jones for the Cardinals, but their defense stunk against Seattle, although they won the game. But you could have made that case after the Dallas game, in which they dominated, and same for the Jet game. But those are two pathetic offenses with backup quarterbacks that they saw. So, we don't know about that one. The Giants clearly missed Saquon Barkley, so there's no Ewing theory there. So, I think this is their best Ewing theory candidate, if there is one, in the NFL this year. Odell Beckham Jr. with the Browns. Because he gets injured, and then Baker Mayfield suddenly looks as good as he did 2 years ago. So, that's something to keep an eye on. That's nothing against Odell, but that's just reality sometimes, that sometimes teams or quarterbacks or whatever play better without a certain player. And this is something to keep monitoring over the next couple weeks for sure about the Ewing theory thing. So, big loss for the Browns, but at the same time, I think this could be addition by subtraction. I think that Jarvis Landry will see a lot of targets now. Zach Higgins, the number 3 string receiver, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones, who caught the game-winning touchdown last week, I think we'll be seeing more reps too. And obviously you have Kareem Hunt, and then you have Nick Chubb probably coming back soon, and then you have the tight ends, David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, who caught a touchdown pass last week. And then I think Bryant actually caught 2. And then Austin Hooper, who was out last week. So the Browns still have a lot of weapons. I still think they can make the playoffs. But we'll see how they fare without their star wide receiver. Now I'm going to do my power rankings for week number 8 of the NFL season. I'm just going to go 32-1. I didn't do a particular theme of the week like I have with the other weeks. But we're definitely going to do a theme next week because next week's halfway. Number 32, the New York Jets. They're going to be number 32 until further notice. They're terrible. Sam Darnold came back on Sunday. He wasn't good. Although they hung around with the Bills. Their defense actually played well last week, so you got to give them credit for that. Number 31 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was as good as I've seen the offense look in a couple weeks. Gardner Minshew played well, but their defense is atrocious. And they're obviously, I think, going to try to be a seller at the deadline this year. Number 30, the New York Football Giants. They should have won last week against the Eagles, but Evan Engram dropped the catch. Eagles get the ball back, and Carson Wentz made the throws, and the Giants dropped the 1-6 on the year. And now I'm going to actually list the opponents for next week. Jets play at Kansas City. Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken, has a bye. Giants are home for the Bucs on Monday Night Football. Oh boy. They're in for a rude awakening on Monday against a red-hot team, which we'll talk about towards the top of the list. Number 29, the Washington Professional Football Team. They did actually look like a professional football team on Sunday against the Cowboys. Granted, Dak Prescott almost had no Andy Dalton. And then there was no Andy Dalton for the last quarter and a half after he was concussed. We'll get to the Cowboys in a couple of minutes. Washington, I believe, is on a bye this week. Number 28, the Cincinnati Bengals. Give Joe Burrow credit for going toe-to-toe with the Browns. That defense is just so bad. That's probably the worst defense in football other than Dallas. Although Dallas's defense, we'll get to them, wasn't that bad on Sunday. It was more their offense this time. But Cincinnati's defense is atrocious. This week they play the Titans at home. Number 27 is the Houston Texans. They're 1-6. They're probably the best 1-6 team of all time, led by Deshaun Watson. Their defense is bad. They clearly missed DeAndre Hopkins. Romeo Crennel is not a good coach. They better not remove the intern tag from him. I think they're going to try to go after a big name in coaching in the winter, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And this upcoming week, I think they have a bye too. If I'm not mistaken, I think Houston has a bye, and they do. Next up, number 26, the Atlanta Falcons. Should have won on Sunday against the Lions, but didn't. Todd Gurley scores the rare as ever game-losing touchdown, and then Matt Stafford and company take advantage of that and get the win. Next up for Atlanta is Thursday night at Carolina, and those two teams already met once this year, in which the Panthers won. I believe it was like a low-scoring game. Number 25, the Minnesota Vikings. Coming off their bye, they're at Green Bay this week. Brutal. And then 2 weeks ago, they lost at home against the putrid Falcons. Number 24, the New England Patriots. The Patriots, they're a train wreck. There's no other way to put it. Cam Newton's been terrible since coming back from COVID. Their defense is shell-shocked without some of their key contributors that opted out for the season. And their skill position guys are terrible. Their offensive line isn't that good. They might be in for a sell-off at the trade deadline. Everyone's talking about potentially Minnesota, who traded away Yannick Ngakoue the other day. I think New England's in for a busy trade deadline next Tuesday. We're probably going to talk about the trade deadline. I want to talk about it on the podcast on Thursday. Maybe Wednesday if the World Series ends. We'll see. But I think New England's in for a sell-off for sure. And in this upcoming week, they're at the Bills. Number 23, the Dallas Cowboys. They've been a train wreck since Dak Prescott got hurt. Although they pulled that Giants game out of their asses. They had no business beating the Giants in that game. But they did because the Giants stink. And the Giants do what they always do, give games away. And then they got killed by the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. And then they got killed by Washington. And now their embarrassing selves are going on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles. Number 22, the Denver Broncos. I think this is another sell-off candidate. They have guys hurt. This upcoming week, they're home for the Chargers. Number 21, the Philadelphia Eagles. They, I think, should be over 500 on the season. They should have never tied with the Bengals. They should have won that game. They should have beaten the Ravens. They're 2-4-1 right now. They should be 4-3 on the season, Philly. They should have beaten the Ravens. Although you could argue they should have lost to the Giants, but they also should have beaten Washington in week 1. And you could argue they should have beaten Pittsburgh, for crying out loud. So you could argue this Eagles team should be 4-3 or 4-2-1 or 5-2. I'm going to say they should be 4-3. They should have lost to the Giants, but they should have beaten Baltimore, the Bengals, and the Washington professional football team. So it evens out. And they should have lost to the Giants. So they should be 4-3. And this week they have a good opportunity to put the division away, quite frankly, against the Dallas Cowboys. Number 20, the Los Angeles Chargers. they get the win against Jacksonville. Justin Herbert gets his first win. This upcoming week, they're at Denver. 19, the Miami Dolphins. They're an interesting team coming off a bye. Tua Tagovailoa making his first career start against the Rams on Sunday. It's going to be a fun game down in South Beach. Number 18, the Detroit Lions. They pulled that one out of their asses against the Falcons. So they're now 3-3 on the year. Did Matt Patricia save his job? Maybe. And this upcoming week for the Lions, they are hosting the Colts. Number 17, the Carolina Panthers. They're interesting. They're 3-4. Have a chance to get back to 500 this week at home against the Falcons. Christian McCaffrey potentially back for this one. Number 16, the Las Vegas Raiders. Disappointing game for them against the Bucs, but I'm willing to say that was more about Tampa being dominant than them being bad. Their defense is bad. I still think their offense is pretty good, but Tampa's defense is pretty good. And this upcoming week, the Raiders are playing at the Bears. Or, I'm sorry, at the Browns. What am I saying? Number 15, the Chicago Bears. They go from, boy, do they take a hit in these power rankings. They go from number 8 to number 15. That's a perturbous drop. Nick Foles was terrible. Their offensive line was terrible. Their skill position guys are terrible. Cordell Patterson's terrible. Their defense made some plays. They got the fumble return for a touchdown, but they couldn't make big stops when it mattered either. They're the most overrated 5-2 team I could remember. And now they are hosting the Saints on Sunday. Number 14, the Los Angeles Rams. A good win against the Bears, but I still think this team's overrated. Their 4 other wins prior to last night were against the dreadful NFC East, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Redskins, and the Eagles. And then they were down 28-3 against the Bills team that is looking more overrated by the week. And Josh Allen's looking more overrated by the week. And they should have beaten them, to be fair, because they threw a defensive pass interference flag on them that shouldn't have been thrown. Meanwhile, Dallas shouldn't have been thrown an offensive pass interference against the same Rams team. So, in theory, the win against Dallas and the loss against Buffalo, I guess, cancel each other out. So, yeah. And in this upcoming week, they're at the Dolphins, which we talked about a couple minutes ago. 13, the Buffalo Bills. Out of my top 10, they've been the most overrated team over the last couple weeks, in my opinion. They dropped from 9-13, which isn't that big of a drop. Josh Allen hasn't played well in the last couple of weeks. Big test for them against a Patriots team that's desperate to prove people wrong. 12, the San Francisco 49ers. They have been looking better. 2 straight wins to get above 500. A lot of people wrote this team off after that ugly Dolphins loss, but here they are at 4-3 with a chance to make the playoffs and perhaps win the division, depending on what happens on Sunday. And on Sunday, they actually go to Seattle to play the Seahawks. Number 11, the Indianapolis Colts. They are coming off a bye, and in this upcoming week, they host the Detroit Lions. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. We talked about them a couple minutes ago with the unfortunate injury to Odell Beckham Jr., who tore his ACL. This upcoming week, they host the Las Vegas Raiders, in which should be a fun game down in Cleveland. 9, the Arizona Cardinals. Impressive win against Seattle on Sunday Night Football. Is one of the best wins any team has had all season long. Kyler Murray's playing great. That offensive line I don't think is very good, but Kyler is finding ways to really keep this team thriving. Their defense, I don't think, is very good. And this upcoming week, the Cardinals have a bye, which stinks because I love watching them play. Number 8, the New Orleans Saints. Nice win over Carolina. They have not been cover machines as they used to be, but they're finding ways to win. Drew Brees looked better this week against the Panthers. And this upcoming week, they're at the Bears. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers. Nice bounce-back game for them after 2 weeks ago getting destroyed by the Bucs at Houston, that they got it done. And now they have another chance to blow everybody away as they take on the Vikings at home, and then they beat the Vikings pretty good in week 1. Number 6, the Seattle Seahawks, coming off their first loss of the season at Arizona. They have a tough one on Sunday at home against the San Francisco 49ers, who've looked better the last couple weeks. Number 5, the Tennessee Titans. Almost potentially stole that game from the Steelers on Sunday. Yes, they're coming off their first loss of the season, but they're this high because they're resilient. They are awesome to watch. There was a tale of two halves for them, but Stephen Gostkowski missed the game-tying kick, which would have sent the game to overtime. So they would have, at least, worst-case scenario, lost in overtime had Gostkowski made that kick. And obviously they're relying on him too much. I think he's washed. He's been terrible this season. Although he made a couple big kicks this year as well, but I think Gostkowski's washed. And then this upcoming week, they're at the Bengals, which could be a trap game. Number 4, the Baltimore Ravens. A ton of pressure on the Ravens this week as they host the Steelers. Obviously, the last time they played a good team, the Chiefs, they got destroyed. And now this time they're home facing an unbeaten Steelers team. And I'm interested to see how this plays out. I know they beat up the Steelers pretty good last year, but that was without Ben Roethlisberger. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play on Sunday. And I think Sunday, there's no important game for any team than Sunday for the Baltimore Ravens. And then you could argue Philadelphia against Dallas too, but this is pretty important for the Ravens on Sunday. Number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're the team to beat in the NFC. They've been dominant these last couple weeks. A fantastic win against the Packers. A good win against the Raiders. And now they're at MetLife Stadium taking on Daniel Jones and the Giants, who blew that game against the Eagles. The Giants have been competitive every game this year with the exception of the 49er game. So this could be a trap spot for the Bucs. Could be. And breaking news coming in, speaking of the Bucs, Antonio Brown officially signed his contract, so it's going to be interesting to see if he plays Monday night at the Giants. That would be a fun subplot of that game, but I don't think so because he has to go through all the COVID tests and whatnot. But we're talking about Yannick Ngakoue before with the Ravens and Vikings. That trade, he's making his debut against the Steelers, I think, on Sunday. So it's going to be interesting to see if Brown debuts Monday for the Bucs against the Giants, because that's just yet another subplot to that Bucs-Giants game, because obviously one of the other ones is Brady lost to the Giants in 2 Super Bowls back when Eli Manning was still there. God, if Eli Manning was still playing, I think would have been a bigger deal, quite honestly, because Eli always played well against the Patriots and Brady. But Daniel Jones played against the Pats last year, and he had some good plays, and then the Patriots played well against him, but the Patriots always play well against young quarterbacks. But that was with Brady, and not right now, obviously. with Cam there. So we should say Tom Brady always plays well against good or young quarterbacks. The exception, I remember, was Russell Wilson when he was a rookie. I think that's the last time the last time a rookie quarterback beat Brady was Geno Smith, which I think was an outlier because that game went to overtime and the Jets beat him. So I think that game's an outlier. So I just look at Russell Wilson's last big name big name quarterback that was a rookie to beat Tom Brady. But Daniel Jones isn't a rookie anymore. But obviously Brady faced Daniel Jones in the Giants last year, and the Patriots won that game, but the Patriots won that game because of their defense, not really because of Brady. So it's going to be interesting to see if Antonio Brown's with them on Monday night or not. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs look dominant in Denver. They continue to look like reigning Super Bowl champions. They have that one blemish against the Raiders, which I think exposed some flaws for them. And next up for Kansas City, they are hosting the Jets. And last but not least, number 1, for the second straight week, the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was quite frankly a tale of two halves for them, but they deserve the number 1 spot because they're unbeaten and they are very well-rounded. They were awesome in the first half against the Titans, outscoring them 24-7. And a credit to the Titans for rallying and making that a game. Ben Roethlisberger had a sloppy second half, a couple interceptions. But quite frankly, Gostkowski missed the kick. The Steelers hang on the win, and they are still undefeated. And their biggest test yet on Sunday against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, who are hungry for a signature win this season. Last but not least, my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. I hinted at it earlier. Rays money line plus 120. Season's on the line. Blake Snell, former Cy Young winner. He pitched well his last time out against the Dodgers. Dodgers have not been that successful going with the opener in the postseason this year. They were lucky in Game 7 against Atlanta because Austin Riley made the base running mistake and didn't take advantage of Dustin May early on, and then Cody Bellinger at that big home run to really bail the Dodgers out in that game. So, Dodgers going with the opener. I think the Rays offense will perform better than it did in game number 5 against Kershaw. So, give me the Rays plus 120 against the Dodgers tonight for my best bet. That's it for the show today. I'll be back recapping game number 6 tomorrow. Will it be post-mortem for each side and talking about the Dodgers' first World Series title since 1988? Or we'll be talking about a Game 7 on the podcast tomorrow. If we're obviously talking about a Dodgers championship and a Rays post-mortem on the show tomorrow, that means obviously we'll be talking about the Masked Singer on the show tomorrow as well. We'll talk with Dancing with the Stars on the show tomorrow because we didn't get to it today. Maybe I'll do an NBA mock draft tomorrow, which I haven't done since the quarantine. So that should be interesting. Obviously, best bet as well. And no, there's not college football tomorrow. There's college football Thursday. Alrighty, hope you guys have a great, great day, everybody.